Putin Bad News.As African leaders call for a de-escalation, Zelensky rejects the idea of talking to Russia. After a visiting delegation of African leaders urged both countries to de-escalate, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed the idea of talks with Russia. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa insisted there should be peace through negotiations, as he led a diplomatic delegation to Kyiv to express the concerns of a continent that has suffered as a result of Russia's invasion, particularly from rising grain prices. When asked about the possibility of negotiations with Russia now that the occupier is on our land, Zelensky flatly rejected it, telling reporters, "I clearly said several times at our meeting that to allow any negotiations with Russia now that the occupier is on our land is to freeze the war, to freeze pain and suffering." Air raid sirens blared across the country as Russian missiles were detected, forcing the African leaders to take refuge in the capital shortly after their arrival. Zelensky claimed that Putin's lack of command over his military during the attack on Kyiv proved that he was irrational. But Ramaphosa saw the bombardment as proof that peace talks were necessary. "It is precisely that type of event that we saw today. That makes us call for de-escalation," Ramaphosa said, quoting Nelson Mandela multiple times on the need for peace. Zelensky issued a statement in which he claimed to have asked the heads of state to detail their plans for ending the crimes committed by Russia and achieving global food security. "But first of all we must restore the full force of the UN Charter and stop this brutal Russian aggression and free our land," he added. Bucha, a city outside of the capital that has become synonymous with alleged war crimes carried out by Moscow, was the first stop for the African delegation. Ramaphosa, Macky Sall of Senegal, Hakainde Hichilema of Zambia, and Azali Assoumani of Comoros, who also serves as the current chairman of the African Union, make up the quartet of heads of state in question. Ugandan, Egyptian, and Congolese heads of state cancelled their trips at the last minute, sending delegates instead. Despite Ukraine's claims of success in its latest counteroffensive, Russian President Vladimir Putin said during the talks that Ukraine's armed forces stand no chance in the areas where fighting has heated up. The Ukrainian Air Force claimed on Saturday that they had intercepted 12 missiles, including 6 hypersonic ones, that had been fired at Kiev on Friday. Regional police reported 7 casualties, including 2 children, but no damage within the city limits. Peter Stano, a spokesman for EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell, said, "With what happened today, it is very obvious also to the African leaders how serious Putin is about stopping the conflict." The strike was quickly reported even by Ukrainian authorities. "Russian missiles are a message to Africa. Russia wants more war, not peace," said Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. On Saturday, the African leaders were scheduled to meet with Putin in the Russian city of St. Petersburg, located in the country's far northwest. According to Ramaphosa, "We are now going to listen to President Putin tomorrow because, in our view, it is important to listen very carefully to what both countries have to say." Putin announced the deployment of nuclear weapons in Belarus and called Zelensky a disgrace to the Jewish people at an annual economic forum in St. Petersburg on Friday, showing little appetite for peace talks. Russia first announced plans to station tactical nukes in its ally and neighbor in March, and on Friday, Putin said that first nuclear warheads were delivered to the territory of Belarus. According to him, the weapons are meant to scare off those who are thinking of inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia. Putin also stated to the forum attendees that he had a lot of Jewish friends who had told him that Zelensky is not Jewish, that he is a disgrace to the Jewish people. Moscow's justification for the war is that it needs to denazify Ukraine, despite the fact that Zelensky is Jewish. Meanwhile, experts have speculated that the delegation's mediation efforts could result in some Kremlin concessions in the run-up to a summit between Russia and Africa next month. Since Russia invaded Ukraine last year, grain and fertilizer prices have risen, severely impacting economies across the African continent. This conflict is also affecting African countries negatively, touching the livelihoods of 1.2 or 1.3 billion people on the African continent, Ramaphosa said. Some African countries have sided with Ukraine, while others have stayed neutral or even gravitated toward Moscow. For example, South Africa has come under fire for failing to condemn Russia's offensive. The Polish parliament has approved a resolution in favor of Ukraine joining NATO. Poland's parliament, the Sejm, backs Ukraine's push for EU and NATO membership. Authored by Stefanchik. Please accept my gratitude for passing a resolution in favor of Ukraine's membership in NATO. According to the document, Ukraine is currently defending not only its statehood but also universal values like democracy and order based on international law. According to the resolution, the Western Defensive Alliance stands to gain militarily from Ukraine's membership in NATO. The upcoming NATO summit in Vilnius is also highlighted as an important venue for discussing the future of NATO-Ukraine relations, and the document suggests that the same process used to invite Finland and Sweden to join the alliance could be used to invite Ukraine to join as well. In addition, Stefanchik said that the Sejm of the Republic of Poland would back initiatives to improve political and practical cooperation between the alliance and Ukraine and to rally support for Ukraine's membership in NATO. The speaker from Ukraine also extended gratitude to Poland, a close ally of Ukraine. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg had previously stated that the July summit in Vilnius would send a clear signal that NATO member states see Ukraine's future as being with the alliance. Reports in the media also indicate that Vice President Joe Biden of the United States favors a speedy NATO membership application from Ukraine after the war ends. We're broadcasting the Ukrainian perspective to the world. Help us out with a one-time gift, or join our Patreon.